After taking our first overnight sleeper train from London to Inverness to visit the Scottish Highlands, we're now catching a rail back down to explore the country's capital, Edinburgh. We're staying right on the legendary Royal Mile, making it super convenient to experience the local culture, the can't-miss sights, some authentic bites, and some barrel-aged sips that can only come from these lands.
We're pulling up to Waverley Station in Edinburgh. There are two main stations there, and this is the one we want to be at because it's closest to our apartment. It took us about 4 hours to get there from Inverness, and we are going to head straight to our apartment because they let us know earlier today that it's already ready for us.
It's already ready already.
We only have a 5-minute walk from the train station to where we're going, and we have, again, the best location. We're staying right on the Royal Mile, and we're gonna be right next to the Edinburgh Castle. A lot of excitement around us.
And because this episode is part of our 7 Continents, 7 Ways adventure for 2024, we have a theme for each one of the continents, and the theme for this one is adventure travel lodging brands, and for our European leg, we've chosen VRBO or Vrbo as our travel lodging partner. I think Erin's most excited about this out of every VRBO that we've had on this trip. We'll see what it actually looks like, but it's got a pretty low bar to exceed the extravagance and luxury and convenience of the other one. Go ahead, buddy.
I love Edinburgh already. This is so cool. This is like the kind of architecture and history I love to see when I go to a new place. Something totally different. I'm so excited to be here.
My advice based on our week here in the UK, don't take big luggage with you. So far, none of the places we have stayed have an elevator. Sorry, a lift. But none of the places have had a gym either, so it kind of works out.
What an adorable apartment. It's obviously very old. The floors they look pretty darn rustic. And the ceilings are high, which is lovely. And these curved arches give it so much character. And I think the decorations give it character too. I mean, I really feel like we're in Edinburgh. Let's start in the kitchen. This is like the main room. So you walk right from the front door and you're in the dining room, and it looks like we can seat 8 people here, but the apartment only sleeps 4. So you could have guests come over, I suppose. And it has a full kitchen, a galley kitchen. So there is a stovetop, an oven, a sink, and a microwave in the corner. Ah, the refrigerator is the bottom half over there. And I do see, is that possibly a dishwasher in the cabinets? Yeah, so it's all the appliances look like they're built in and have the cabinet faces on them. And then the living room is right on Royal Mile Street. So we've got 2 big, beautiful windows we can look at and see all the action down there. It actually seems like there are street performers that are right below our window. And this is gorgeous up here. I don't know if it's stone or metal, but it's just a beautiful etching of the town and Edinburgh Castle, which we're gonna see tomorrow. And nice seating area for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, not including the window seats. But we can watch TV and we can just relax and enjoy in here.
I have pretty much zero interest in watching any TV tonight when we have all of this entertainment right out on High Street. There's like a street performer down there that we saw and a whole lot of really sketchy action going on. And we've got a primo view because we're 2 floors away from it, so safe and entertaining.
I called it the Royal Mile and Phil called it High Street. It is actually both.
If you travel internationally like we do, you probably pass SIM card kiosks every time you walk through a new airport. And if you're like me, there's a good chance that the idea of buying a SIM card gives you anxiety. It's been years since I've inserted or removed a SIM card on our phones, and the idea of even configuring one seems like a nightmare. Not just because of the complexity, but also the risks of being scammed and the simple inconvenience of trying to catch a taxi with hands full of kids and luggage. But connectivity is a must for our family, so when we're gonna be away from Wi-Fi, We use the Saily eSIM service from the famously brilliant NordVPN team. Saily's a simple and user-friendly mobile app offering affordable eSIM plans in over 160 countries and 8 regions, without the hassle of messing with physical cards. You just install the Saily app and browse plans for the country you're visiting. Once you purchase a plan, you install the eSIM, which is quick and easy within the app. Once it's installed, you activate it. You can install a Saily eSIM once and use it for multiple countries, and if you activate it just before leaving home, you'll be able to connect to the local network as soon as your plane lands. If you have any issues along the way, you've got 24/7 support at your fingertips, but we can say from personal experience that this is the most user-friendly eSIM offering that we've tried, and it's the only one we use when we travel. Download the Saily app and use our promo code ALWAYS at checkout to get a 15% discount on all data plans. Or just go to saily.com/always to get started.
Let's go check out the bedrooms. There are only 2 bedrooms. So the first one, when you come right in the door, same, I'd say, level as the living room and kitchen, is where the kids are gonna be sleeping. So there are 2 twin beds here, and they get the same view of High Street / Royal Mile right out there. And it looks like we have 3 closets. So this is one linear closet here. Some hangers and shelves, and then behind Phil over here, it's closed with a hair tie. Some shelves and an extra pillow, and the same shelves over here. Go check out the other room. We're paying about $400 a night for this place, and what we're really paying for is the location and the size. We're traveling as a family of 4, sometimes 5. Size matters, and having that extra bedroom makes a big difference in comfort, for sure. Speaking of comfort, this is where Phil and I are staying. We have a charming room, and it looks like a queen-size bed. Phil says yes, got that right. And some linear closets here, if I can figure them out. Yes, I can. So we can hang some stuff. And does this move? It does! We can fold some stuff and hang more things. We don't get the most glorious view from here. I wonder, no, there's really no view because we're kind of in an alley on this side of us. But that's okay, we're just gonna sleep with our eyes closed anyway.
I don't know, I think it's kind of a pretty view. I also think these are really cool, like you were saying, very old place. And this might be the original glass because it's still got that imperfection in terms of like waviness, so you get some distortion looking through it. Very, very charming. It's like a courtyard back here.
There's only one bathroom for us to all share, and it's right outside of our bedroom. So easy access for Phil and I, but there is a toilet, maybe a towel heater with the radiator there, and a sink. The shower is interesting. So it's a bathtub shower with a circle curtain around it. And another thing that Phil and I didn't really think too well ahead of time was shampoo and conditioner. When you stay in Verbos, we're used to them providing shampoo, conditioner, body wash, and all that, but we haven't had any of that in the Verbos since we've been here. We did in London. Okay, Phil says we did in London, but yeah, in Scotland, we're on our own. We're just like water washing.
Hey, now that the tour's done, let's head down to High Street and check out what's out there. I literally haven't had anything to eat all day. I'm starving, and it's like 3:30 p.m. So I think we're just gonna call it an early dinner, go with one of the recommended places right here on the owner's billboard. It's Italian, which sounds delicious. I normally don't like to go into a new city and start by having food from a completely different country, but it does sound good, and it's very convenient, and it's highly recommended.
Plus, I have 2 restaurants on the itinerary for tomorrow that are gonna be legit historical Scottish food.
Don't pull until it's up, okay, bud? Come on, Papa.
Gotta go up.
What?
Yeah,
Why would you do
it's a
that?
trick door. The street is so vibrant. I love that we're staying right on the street. We are going literally across the street to the vibrant color, Gordon's Trattoria. Love that blue.
As usual, we're starting something off with a cocktail. I'm doing a Negroni because, hey, we're in an Italian restaurant. Aaron's starting off with the Chianti Classico, and I think this is as good a time as any to just talk about the elephant in the room, and that is how to pronounce the name of the city that we're in right now. Most Americans would take one look at the spelling and probably assume that it is pronounced Edinburgh, because that's the way we would typically pronounce it in the US. But it's actually a little bit up in the air. Even amongst locals, it seems to be some variation. So we had to do our research, and here's what we came up with. You're always gonna make it by if you can just say Edinburgh. But a lot of people here add an extra to the end subtly, so it's Edinburgh. So that's what we've been doing.
Well, it was originally named the Burr of Eidyn. I'm not sure the spelling on that one. I think that was Eidyn. And that was way back in the day, and I probably have to research what year that was, but a very long time ago. I got the lasagna. It was calling my name. I'm so glad I did. It's like boiling at the bottom of this plate. So hot. And I think pasta is okay in Scotland because it's all Europe. And that's the continent that we're working on right now. So good. And I got penne pomodoro.
I went with the chicken milanese, or polo milanese. It was highly recommended by one of the proprietors here. Here's the thing. All of their chicken dishes on the menu here come with either chips, also known as potato wedges or fries to us in America, or rice, which I think is very unusual for Italian stuff. So I asked to replace my chips with a side of spaghetti. So that's what I got. It looks incredible. Tastes incredible.
I just got garlic bread and it's really good.
So again, to finish off the...
Hey, I'm ending the night here with, almost hands down, the best espresso martini I've had anywhere in the world. Look at the way that separates. This is like a Guinness. So close to the home of Guinness beer, but such a similar way of shaking it so well that you end up with this separation and all that foam on top. The flavors are absolutely incredible. When we get back, we're gonna start to set up our home for Christmas. We've got to do some martinis, and I decided that this is what we're making for the family when we do it. And by family, I don't mean the kids. That is so good, it makes me maybe want to become a coffee drinker.
Newsflash, I think you are.
That's incredible. Well done. Bravo. As we mentioned yesterday, the Royal Mile is just a succession of streets that comprise the main thoroughfare of the old town of the city. And the name comes from its history as a traditional processional route of monarchs.
The streets that make up the Royal Mile are Castle Hill,
Lawn Market,
High Street,
Canongate,
and Abbey Strand. And together, those make up the busiest touristy street in the Old Town.
and it runs between two significant royal locations in the history of Scotland. One of those is Edinburgh Castle, and the other is Holyrood Palace.
Edinburgh Castle is over 900 years old, and it sits on top of Castle Rock overlooking Edinburgh. It sits on top of an over 700 million year old volcano that is extinct.
And Castle Rock has been occupied by humans since at least the Iron Age.
and that's pretty much when we saw iron tools in use in Scotland. That was about 4,000 years ago.
It served as a royal residence until 1633.
And you can do full tours here. I want to say that for our family, it would run over $100 to do it. And you are supposed to leave at least 2 hours to do that. So we don't really have enough time in our schedule today. We just wanted to see it up close and enjoy the incredible views out here. But we've got a lot of other stuff we have to cover, so let's get moving.
Just 2 blocks from the castle is St. Giles Cathedral, and its history spans almost as long as the castle, being over 900 years old. But it's not actually a cathedral because they haven't had a bishop there since the year 1689.
But wasn't that when you were born, Mom?
Rude. I read the most famous person buried here is John Knox, the great Scottish divine. Now, he was the leader of the Scottish Reformation in the 1500s, so he died in 1572. And his burial is not in the cathedral. It's actually out here in the parking lot. It says that if you go to parking space 23, you'll see a commemorative plaque reading, "The above stone marks the approximate site of the burial of St. Giles' graveyard of John Knox, the great Scottish divine who died the 24th of November, 1572. So old, it's really hard to read.
Let me read it. Stone mark.
It is freezing out, so I want to get us into a warm restaurant where we can have some traditional Scottish food.
Upstairs. We've stopped off at a great little place. It's about halfway between the castle and the palace. It's called Albanoch, and it's very Scottish. How do I know it's Scottish? Because Albanoch is literally Gaelic for Scottish.
Do you guys anything else in Inverness?
We've all got all kinds of traditional Scottish dishes, but the most traditional of them all would be haggis, and that is the Scottish dish. What's not traditional is that it's a fritter, it's deep fried. Because a traditional haggis it's sheep's pudding, but they don't mean pudding as in the dessert, pudding as in a sausage, and they make it with almost every part of the sheep. So the heart, the lungs, and it's cooked in the stomach lining. And they also use spices and oatmeal. I think the texture is usually like a meatloaf. And fun little fact, it is outlawed in the United States ever since 1971. They thought that it wasn't a healthy dish because of the lungs. So it is illegal to import a traditional haggis into the US. So we gotta have it here. It also comes with a gravy there. Nice and crispy. I love it. I think there's a bit more spices in it than a meatloaf, but otherwise it's very similar. And I like the sheep's meat. I think it's a little bit more, maybe sheep tastes a little saltier to me.
I got some sirloin steak with some fries. And this is some top tier garlic bread. It could use some olive oil though. We don't got olive oil.
I asked our waitress what one of the most traditional Scottish dishes on the menu was, and she said probably get the steak pie. It looks like a sandwich sitting here. It's not a sandwich at all. It's got this steak and ale filling, and then it comes with a side of gravy, and it's a merlot and steak drippings gravy, which looks phenomenal. And then this wedge of charred hispy cabbage, super traditional Scottish. And then I could choose between either the fries or the mash, and I got the mash because it goes well with the gravy. It's really good gravy. That's really good, especially on a cold day like this.
Another great thing to get on a cold day is soup. So I also got their cauliflower and
Nutmeg.
chestnut. Their cauliflower and chestnut soup, and it is good. It's nice and thick, kind of creamy, and the greens on top are really yummy too. But the haggis, 10 out of 10, to be honest. This is more like a 9 out of 10. I've had a bite of pretty much everything on the table, and the standouts are the merlot gravy that was on Phil's plate. Oh my gosh, with the mashed potatoes, so good, and his steak pie, pretty darn good too. Colt's mac and cheese, so delicious. That cheddar flavor was so rich, so good. And of course, my haggis fritters were super yummy. But we've cleaned up here, so let's get back out on the street.
To the palace.
We're passing some of these alleyways and entrances, and they say a name and the word close, C-L-O-S-E. And close means that it's private property, so it's not a through street or for public affair.
Although I suspect that's like a historical thing because I see a lot of people walking through these. It doesn't look like it's the owners or anything, so I think it's just a remnant of the term, and now they actually largely are public areas.
Oh, beautiful setting.
The name of the palace is Holyroodhouse.
See, I couldn't do that with my voice. I can't roll my tongue at all whatsoever. But this is an official residence of the King of England. It is the home of Scottish royal history. Mary, Queen of Scots chambers, where she lived between 1561 and 1567. Among the buried here would be David II, James II, James V, King Henry, better known as Lord Darnley, second husband of Mary, Queen of Scots.
And Colt the First.
So we've walked all the way from the top of the Royal Mile and to the bottom of the Royal Mile, and we still have the quintessential Scottish experience to do, but the kids can't come with us. So we're gonna drop them back off at our apartment.
If you're not a whiskey drinker, like I'm not a whiskey drinker, you may not know that Scotch whiskey simply means it's whiskey that's made here in Scotland. It's the only place that Scotch can be made, just like you can't make champagne outside of the Champagne region of France, and you can't make tequila outside of the tequila region in Mexico. But we figured we couldn't come all the way here and not at least give this a try, because it's supposed to be some of the best whiskey on the planet.
Drinking Scotch is the most Scottish thing you can do, so how could we not do it? And again, I am not a Scotch drinker either, or whiskey connoisseur, if you will. But we're gonna try out the Scotch whiskey experience. Check this out! It's interactive. You stomp on it and then they fly away. And I don't know if these are bubbles or maybe barley. I don't know what barley looks like. I'll tell you how much I know about whiskey. Yet. How much I know yet. But we're gonna learn a ton in here. The Scotch whiskey experience is a 50-minute tour we're about to embark on. Whiskey is said to be the spirit of Scotland, which I think is meant in two different ways. One, literally the alcohol spirit, and two, a soul that's here in the country. It's made with three main ingredients: water, barley, and yeast. Water might be the most important of all. There is a saying here that today's rain is tomorrow's whiskey. And the whiskey has about 70% alcohol. In order for it to legally be considered Scotch, it has to stay in an oak cask for at least 3 years and 1 day on Scottish soil, and at least 40% ABV. The longer it ages, the darker the color. While being stored, it loses about 2 to 3% to evaporation, and they call that the angel share. There are 5 different whiskey producing regions in Scotland. They each had very distinct scents and flavors. And those 5 are single malts. Because whiskey in Scotland didn't take off until about 200 years ago. Before that, Irish whiskey really dominated the market. And it wasn't until they experimented with blends that it really became an export from Scotland. Blends are about 90% of the whiskey sales today. This is a master collection, with the oldest bottle being from the late 1800s and the second oldest 1904. There are 3,500 bottles here and none of them have been opened. They're all sealed, but you can see that some of them are about half full, being optimistic there, because of the angel share, which is the evaporation that happens over time or just by poor corking. This one over here really had some poor corking because it's completely evaporated. Very sad.
I'm gonna give mine a try. We did the silver tour. It comes with one shot, I believe it's 25 milliliters, also called a, what do you call one shot of this? Dram. A 25 milliliter shot, also called a dram here in Scotland. And we got to choose between one single malt Scotch whiskey from any one of these 5 regions, or we could do a blend. Erin and I both went with the single malt option. She did one from the Lowlands. I went with one from Speyside. The difference between those is a single malt Scotch whiskey is going to be just basically a single batch made from the malted barley, whereas a blended is going to be a blend of different whiskeys that are past the aging process. Both are good. I think that a lot of people, including myself, always believed that a single malt Scotch whiskey was somehow superior because it's pure, it's a single, and it would be cheapened by blending, but that's not actually the case, and you can achieve very good flavors with a blended whiskey. It also allows you to have a similar flavor from year to year or batch to batch for a specific whiskey that is your favorite. So the master blenders will mix those different whiskeys together from different casks so that they can achieve a nearly identical flavor from year to year.
These cards with the 5 different regions we got, they're actually scratch and sniff. So I chose the Lowlands because of the scent. And I feel like this one has I know because there's a cheat sheet on the back. But it has lemon, toast, and ooh, what is that? Wheat, maybe? And I was also told that it was a good introductory whiskey to try, since I'm not a typical whiskey connoisseur. But there are 5 steps to tasting, and one is sight. So you look at it, you look at the color. And then number 2 is the swirl. Then you look for the legs. If it is fast running legs, then maybe it's a lighter whiskey. If it's slower, then it's thicker and a heavier whiskey. 4th is the scent. Now with wine, you put your whole nose in there and you try to get a big whiff, but with whiskey that might be a little too much. So some people will just pass it by. Okay, so this is not too powerful. So I'm still on the right track for picking my whiskey. And the 5th is the taste. And I'm gonna take the tiniest sip because I'm a noob, a lightweight. It's like it opens up and it's like it evaporates into just aroma, like in your mouth. It's pretty crazy. I'm not sure that I could do more than this tasting, but the tasting is really good. And I would say it's more of an experience than just a drink or a dram.
I need to get a taste of mine before it all evaporates for the angels. By the way, I saw a sign in there that said every single year the equivalent of 150 million bottles of Scotch whiskey are lost to evaporation. All that lost opportunity. Oh, that's fantastic. Let me show you what we have, by the way. This was Aaron's, Airstone. And this is the whiskey I had, the Glen Grant. Aaron's aged for 10 years, mine not published, probably less than 10 years. We've done a number of tours around alcohol before, whether it's a winery tour or we've done brandy tours, and they've all been a lot of fun for sure. But this one is so over the top. It is actually a must-see. It's kind of hard to believe that just on a little part of the street here in the middle of the old town is a place where they have put so much money into the experience. And in fact, the museum, as I'm going to call it, component of this that we just toured, is part of a 3.5 million British pounds, so let's call that somewhere north of $4 million USD expansion. The level of physical and digital visuals in here is actually astounding. And in the blending room, how they had those bottles that were holographic and we could see the flames and the effects. I mean, it really was next level. Makes it really engaging. I think you could even take kids through here. Obviously, they're not going to drink the whiskey at the end, but it would be a very visually stimulating activity for anyone of any age.
Speaking of kids, we're gonna take our souvenir tasting glasses with us and go get ours. Unfortunately, our time in the UK has come to an end. If you caught our last episode, you saw that we took a sleeper train from London all the way up to Inverness in the Highlands of Scotland. So now we're actually on our way to the train station so that we could take another sleeper train back to London so that we could get straight on our flight. We're going back to the US, but only for a few weeks before we fly out to South America, hitting that 6th continent and onto Antarctica, the 7th continent, the ultimate continent. So if you want to follow those adventures, please make sure that you subscribe, and we'll see you in the very next episode.
Italian food.
Here,
Yippee.
That is the whole awesome. Can you say hi?
You just totally tanked my show.
I did.
A little more energy on this one, like you just had a bunch of ice cream, like say.
You know what helped with
That was
that?
4,000 years ice cream.
Getting ice cream. To the palace. My palace. Where I sit on the weekends. And my people bow down to me. And
Have it, put it on a truck across the road and have the truck drive by?
No LaCroix joke.
What?
No LaCroix joke.
No LaCroix? All right.